What's up, everyone? Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Today, I'm excited to do another client interview for you guys, this time with Noah, who just finished his full-time 2022 full-time recruiting process. So he's a senior right now. And we've been working with Noah for, geez, I don't know, a long time now. I'm trying to remember when you joined exactly, but it's been really fun this whole time working with them, and just excited to now get to look back on his entire journey, and hopefully in the process also have him share some useful insights with you guys. So Noah, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me today, Sam. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I actually just looked it up while I was saying that, but it sounds like it looks like you've been with us since January of 2020. So that's been like a year, a year and 9 months actually. So it's definitely been a journey. But maybe before we dive into all that, if you could introduce yourself real quick, just so people have a sense of who you are.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm currently a senior at NYU. So I actually don't go to the business school. I'm not in Stern. I go to the College of Arts and Science, studying, economics and mathematics, so liberal arts background. Um, and when I first went to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I heard buzzwords like consulting and investment banking being thrown around, and actually, my freshman year, I actually wanted to go into consulting. Um, but I think, as a result of like my different experiences and actually trying out consulting and, hearing more about investment banking, I actually wanted to go into the finance route. So going into my sophomore year, I wanted to really go into investment banking. But I realized that, with my background and, coming from non-finance background, not having a lot of relevant experience, I couldn't really go into investment banking on my own. And that's why I really wanted to sort of enroll into the program. And as you mentioned, Sam, I started into the program, I think January of 2020. So it's been, almost 2 years now with you. It's been a really incredible journey. I went through both the junior year recruiting process as well as the full-time recruiting process. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about my experiences going through both. But yeah, it's been a really great and rewarding experience so far.
Right, right. That's awesome. And so obviously you joined in January of 2020, which was halfway through your sophomore year, is like basically right at the beginning of your second semester of sophomore year, right? So leading up to that point, like what were some of the things that you have been doing on your own prior to joining Wall Street Mastermind? Like, because most people, well, I don't say most people, but a lot of people before they come to us, they have already tried a bunch of stuff, right? And there's something that's maybe not working exactly the way they wanted to, which is why they come to us. But like, how are things going for you back then?
Yeah, definitely. I think my sophomore, spring was when I joined the program, and before that, I, knew, so that I wanted to go into investment banking, and obviously doing a lot of the recruiting preparation for that. Obviously, sort of looked at different resume templates online, trying to, craft my resume on myself, making sure that the template is sort of, the standard banking template, trying to make sure that my bullet points all make sense. Obviously trying to study both the behavioral aspect and technical aspect of the interview, looking through the standard, breaking into Wall Street guides, looking through Wall Street Oasis, trying to gather information here and there on my own. And honestly, it was a very overwhelming process. And I obviously didn't have any finance experience. I really had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know how to go about networking, how to write a cold email, how to actually speak to professionals and come across as a very polished individual. And yeah, I was honestly a mess before I joined the program. So I think it was a very night and day difference once I actually entered and started working with you guys.
Got it. And so, like, what was it that made you decide to join a program like this, though? Because it's, I mean, now at this point, we've been around for a while, but at least back when you first joined, I think we were relatively new company. We had a little bit of a track record, but nowhere near what it is today. And you probably, I don't know, I'm guessing you didn't personally know anyone that had gone through a program like this, right? And if you probably just look around you, like everyone else, the way that they're going about it is kind of what you just described, what you were already doing on your own.
Yep.
So for you to kind of like buck that trend and do something different, and zig while everyone's zagging. Like, what was it that pushed you to do that, or what made you kind of want to make that type of decision? Um, was there some like a particular moment, or was there like a realization, or maybe just something that I don't know you were trying to do and you just couldn't figure it out, and you're like, hey, I'm sick and tired of this, or like what was it that made you take that leap of faith? I guess.
Definitely. I think it was a mixture of me realizing that I was running out of time and also realizing that I was super unprepared for the entire process. I think being at NYU, obviously there's a lot of people that are uh, gunning for investment banking, right? Obviously there's student school of business where more than 50% of people study finance and want to go into banking, and also there's people in other schools at NYU that also wanted to go into banking. And I guess throughout the whole recruiting process before I joined the program, I applied to all the finance clubs at Stern, got rejected by all of them. Trying to do my own preparation, wasn't very successful at all. And so I realized that my competition was obviously much more prepared than I was, had great finance experience, was networking with all these professionals, and making progress in applications. But I realized I was super far behind, not having any relevant finance experience, not knowing a single investment banking technical, and not being well versed in the entire industry. So I realized that hey, applications are opening up very soon. Some banks have already started interviewing. Can I actually do this on my own? And I thought long and hard about it, and I realized that it was actually close to 0% of like me being able to do it by myself, because I didn't have access to all the different resources that other students were having, being part. So different fraternities, or being having access to these elite clubs at school, right? I wasn't part of any of that, so I realized that I really needed help. And given that I was pretty serious about going into investment banking, even if the cost of the program was something that initially I was also pretty hesitant about, I realized that it's an investment in my future and my career path. And, if everyone else is investing their own time and effort and resources into their own recruiting process, I thought, why not? Why not invest in my own potential and going to the program as well? So looking back, definitely I was also very hesitant about going to the program. And as you mentioned, it was more new, didn't have a lot of track record, but I listened very carefully to all the testimonials that is being recorded right now, actually. So doing a lot of my research on my own, and obviously looking into your background as well. I mean, Sam, you come from a very incredible background, having worked at Deutsche Bank, Morgan Stanley, going to private equity, and you had all these incredible experiences. And I think hearing your story, and I guess hearing about your passion towards guiding students breaking into investment banking really, I guess, made me realize that you're also serious about helping your students and clients. So I
Yeah.
thought that the program was something that was worth my time and money. And looking back, it was definitely something that paid a lot of dividends, looking back.
Mhm. Got it. That makes sense, man. I mean, it sounds like basically you understood that this was a competitive process, and obviously everyone has their own ways of how they look to gain a competitive edge. And a big part of that for people maybe is joining student orgs on campus, and a lot of schools, especially schools like NYU, where there's a lot of students who want to go into finance. There's probably a ton of like feeder clubs where they have alumni network that's built in on Wall Street, and those alumni typically only help the students that are in those clubs. And obviously, if you can get into those clubs, then great. And we actually have a lot of students in our program that are also in those clubs. But certainly, if you couldn't get into one of those clubs, then it's like you got to find something else that's gonna teach you everything you need to know to compete with those other students, right? So that makes a lot of sense. And then, like, just for people that don't go to NYU, like, how big of a difference is it being at NYU Stern versus just like NYU College of Arts and Sciences? Like, is that a big difference, or is this like NYU is NYU?
Yeah, I guess when banks look at sort of, I guess there's like two different factors. I think externally and internally. So I guess externally, when banks look at a resume that came from the College of Arts and Science versus Stern, I think they place a bit more emphasis on someone who studied finance and comes from a finance background, given that a lot of the alumni from NYU are from Stern, right? And a lot of them work at Wall Street. So I think they tend to have more of an emphasis on the school that they graduated from. So I think in terms of like comparing your resume versus College of Art Science versus Stern, I think Stern definitely has an edge over there. And also just internally as a student, all of the resources, all the on-campus recruiting, really all the activity is within Stern. So I think if you're a freshman that first came on campus and you really don't know what you want to do, I think as a Stern student, it's much more easier to have access to those different finance organizations, having access to those upperclass mentors, having access to certain fraternities on campus that have a sort of dedicated recruiting pipeline into the banks. And so I think internally as a student, it's also a big advantage to be in Stern, because ultimately that's where all the finance organizations are. That's where all of the clubs are. That's where all the on-campus recruiting actually happens. And so I think as a College of Arts and Science student, I did come sort of from a disadvantage, and you really have to hustle a lot more if you're not in Stern. So I would say there is a pretty big difference.
Got it. So it's almost like you guys go to the same school technically, but within that school, there's like a target school and a non-target school, depending on whether you're in the business school or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can even say like I think Stern is definitely a target school, but you can almost say like CAS or like the other schools within NYU is more of a semi-target, or something more of a non-target. So there is definitely a big difference. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. And so like then you came into Wall Street Mastermind halfway through sophomore year, and then like you mentioned, you went through your junior summer internship recruiting, and then more recently at the end of your internship, you went through full-time recruiting. And so talk to us about, I guess, the last 20 plus months that you've been in Wall Street Mastermind. Like, what is that experience like? Like, what are you actually doing inside of this program? And for those people who are listening right now, or kind of from the outside looking in, and they have no idea what to envision for what they would be doing in this program. Like, how would you describe it? And maybe like the biggest question everyone always asks is like, what's the difference between what I would do inside the program versus what I would just be doing on my own? Like, can I just go out and find all the information I need, just for free? Like, well, why bother doing something like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think definitely you can do it all by yourself for free. You can certainly go on sites like Wall Street Oasis. You can go on YouTube, watch different tutorials. You can talk to different, professionals or upperclassmen and do all the research on your own. But that takes time and a lot of effort and a lot of trial and error. By going to the program, you're being taught by people like Sam who worked in the industry directly, have relevant experience already. They know what they're doing. And so it's very formulaic, right? You're already given like all the research, all the knowledge is just given to you on a silver platter, and all you need to do is like just absorb it. And so I think going to the program, it's really efficient in terms of both your time and your energy. So before I joined the program, as I mentioned, all the information is out there, but super overwhelming. You don't really know what's right or wrong. And so going to the program where there's someone like Sam that's actually walking you through, how to learn the technicals or how to craft the best resume that you can have is just really helpful, and honestly just saves a lot of time and allows you to focus your efforts on more important matters like actually networking with different professionals, practicing interviews, and the other stuff that's really important in the recruiting process. And so when I joined the program, I think, typically you start off with perfecting your application material. So the resume was a big thing that I was able to really improve upon. I remember when I first got my resume back from you, there was about 50 or so different comments. I think the whole paper was like red with the comments from Word, and I remember it was just a really big difference from what I had before going to the program. It was just a really big difference, and obviously the resume is the most important document that you're submitting, right, to the different banks. And I think having my resume vetted from you and having it sort of perfected really allowed me to come across as a more polished candidate. And when I was sending cold emails to different firms, I got a lot of positive feedback, and I think I got a lot of interviews for my sophomore summer, especially through that sort of resume perfection. And then obviously going into sort of the interview preparation process, you give great advice on how to structure your behavioral answers. For example, I remember you asked us, all the sort of the clients, to fill out a behavioral questionnaire, and all the coaches in the program were really thorough into sort of looking through word for word and analyzing the content and make sure the structure was coherent and easy to digest. And that was really mind blowing for me, when like what understanding the behavioral questionnaire and understanding how I can structure it more coherently was really, really important. And then obviously the technical portion was great for me because I wasn't a finance major. I didn't know what a DCF was. I didn't know really understand how the three statements linked. Didn't know LBOs and stuff like that. So the technical modules was really, really digestible. It was almost like taking another class. And you taught things and explained things in a really easy to digest manner. So the technical modules are super helpful in preparing me for a technical portion of the interview. So I think coming on the program, I definitely had a much, much better resume. I came across more polished in my interviews, and also I just knew how to go about the entire recruiting process in a much more polished and efficient manner.
Got it. Got it. That's great. And what about like on the networking side? Like, how did you see any difference in your networking before and after joining the program?
Yeah, definitely. When I went about networking before I joined the program, I really didn't know how to go about networking. I didn't know what to say during my networking conversations, and I didn't know how I can, effectively utilize those networking conversations to further my application processes. So before joining the program, I didn't really know, what do I say in my cold email? Like, how do I get the best response rate? And when I get a banker on the phone, or if I get them for a coffee chat, like, what questions do I ask them? How do I frame the conversation? Uh, and obviously, I bombed a lot of the networking conversations before I joined the program. But I think once I joined, you'll provide a lot of great tips and tricks to really maximize both the outreach process, but also, once you actually get a banker on the phone or in front of you, what sort of questions to ask them, how to frame the conversation. And then I think lastly, the most important thing is, how you can utilize those networking conversations for your own benefit to get interviews, which is the most important thing, right? So definitely networking was also a night and day difference for me. And I was able to really go about it more efficiently and effectively after the program.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, I mean, you mentioned obviously, sure, technically all the information's out there. It's just like super time consuming for you to have to sift through everything on your own. And it's not really efficient, and you don't know what information is good information and what information is bad information. So that part all makes sense. Um, the other part of the program I feel like is it's a lot more than just information. It's like the personalized feedback that you would get, right? Which, like, yes, you can Google a bunch of stuff, but like Google's not going to tell you, for example, whether your interview answer is a good one or not, right? Or Google's not going to tell, like, you can find a template for your resume, but still you're the one that has to fill it out and then get feedback on it, and Google doesn't really do that, right? So like on the feedback portion though, is there even a difference between, I don't know, getting feedback from the Wall Street Mastermind team versus, say, like a lot of people say, well, I can just go and get feedback from upperclassmen, or I can just go get feedback from like some banker that I network with, right? And I don't know if you've tried doing stuff like that outside of Wall Street Mastermind, and if you have, like, can you kind of compare and contrast a little bit? Like, is that kind of all the same thing, or is it pretty different? And if so, like, what difference is there?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a huge difference. I also tried asking upperclassmen for advice, talk to different bankers, to help, look through my resume and give me advice or whatnot. But I think a lot of the advice that they provide is oftentimes very generic. Even if you talk to upperclassmen who were successful throughout the recruiting process, they just obviously finished the recruiting process. They're only a year or two older than you, and so they don't really have as much of a relevant experience to really guide you through and give you really sound advice. And then compared to the Wall Street Mastermind team, where there's Sam and there's other coaches who have actually worked in the industry for 3, 4, 5 years, gone to private equity, and has a bunch of more relevant industry experience, and having those coaches and having those mentors actually, analyze each of your sort of behavioral answers word for word, look through your resume and really, really be invested in your growth and provide more robust feedback has been something that you can't really get outside of the program, right? Because coaches at Wall Street Mastermind are really invested in your growth and your potential and your success, but you can't really say the same thing for a random upperclassman that you met in a club or a random banker that you just had a 30-minute coffee chat with, right? So there's definitely a very big difference between asking for advice and help from upperclassmen, generic friends that you have versus the coaches at Wall Street Mastermind who have relevant industry experience and are most importantly, investment bankers who gone through their process before and have also coached similar students like yourself over the years. So it's a very big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess if I were to really summarize what you just said is like, I think obviously everyone should try to get help from wherever they can, right? I understand like obviously some help out there you can get for free, some help out there you have to pay for, and there's obviously a trade-off there, right? I think the trade-off you're making is like if money was no object and it's within your means, um, ideally if you could draw up like the ideal mentor or coach or whoever's responsible for helping you, you're really looking for two things. One is like how experienced and how qualified are they to be giving you advice and feedback, right? So it's like the the quality of the feedback that you're getting. That's one. And then two is how invested are they in your outcome, right? Like meaning how much does it matter to them whether you get this job or not, and how much time are they going to put into getting you the outcome that you want. Whereas obviously, with most things that are free, people are usually not going to be super invested, right? Because like even if they're your friend or something, like if they already got a job, yes, they want you to get a job too, but hey, everyone's busy and people usually aren't going to spend hours and hours and hours, helping you get a job because at the end of the day, that's your problem, right? Versus with Wall Street Mastermind, well, I mean, one, because you're paying us, obviously, and so we have an obligation to get you the result that you're paying for, but also two, like we have skin in the game in the sense that if our clients don't do well, then we're not going to have a business for very long, right? Whereas if our clients do well, then we also personally benefit from that as well because, positive word of mouth, and, testimonials from our clients like we're doing right now and things like that. And so we're obviously going to be a lot more invested. It's like for us, this is a job and this is what we do versus for other people, if they're just like doing you a favor or whatever, the amount of time and effort that they put in is just not going to be the same, right? And we've had a lot of our clients tell us they're like, well, with you guys, I can message you guys anytime with however many questions I have, and I don't have to feel bad about it. Whereas with my friends, I don't want to be annoying and just keep texting them every time I have a question or something because you don't want to be that guy, right? You don't want to be like, oh my God, it's Noah again. He's bothering me about this, or he wants to know how to do this, whatever it may be, right? And so I think that's something that people don't realize is there's a lot of different ways to get help, but it's almost like just how good do you want the help to be, or how good do you need the help to be, right? And I would argue that it depends on what it is that you're working on. Like if you're talking about your career or like where you're going to start your first job, something that's going to have a long lasting impact on your career trajectory, like that's not something to that's not something where you want to like when you're making trade-offs, you don't want to sacrifice on quality, right? I always joke about it, like if I'm buying toilet paper, I might buy single ply instead of double ply. And to save a little bit of money. Like, who cares, right? Even though some people would argue that too. It's like some people they need the best toilet paper, but you get the point. It's like for something that's not super consequential, like who cares? Okay, I'll save a little bit of money, but for something that's like gonna affect you for the rest of your life, or at a minimum for the next 20, 30, 40 years, for something that you've been working towards pretty much your entire life up to this point. It's like I feel like when we're younger, our goal is to like get into a good college. And then we get into college, the goal is to like get a good job. So it's like when you think about everything you've done up to this point, it's like, what was all that for? Oh, it's all been building up to this point right here, which is, hey, what kind of job am I going to graduate with? Right. So it's like obviously super important. And why cheap out now?
Yeah.
Right. It's like almost I would say it's like being what is it, penny wise but pound foolish, I think is the saying, right? Um, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's like having all the information in one place, knowing like and being able to just consume only the stuff you need to know, and then kind of like ignore all the noise that's out there, which wastes a lot of time. And then on top of that, getting the best feedback possible, that basically allows you to accelerate or kind of shorten your preparation process. Um, and if you can be more efficient than your competition, like if it takes you less time to learn the technicals, takes you less time to come up with good behavior answers, takes you uh, or you network the same amount as your peer, but you're getting more referrals out of the amount of time that you're putting in, like all of those things kind of add up and increase the probability of you getting that offer ultimately, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So that makes a lot of sense. So I guess what what was the outcome for you? Like I know you went through like, two different recruiting cycles with us. And so like ultimately like where are you going after you graduate?
Yeah, definitely. I guess starting sort of back my sophomore year, I think obviously I really want to help my junior summer internship, right? But I also needed help finding relevant sophomore summer internship experiences. So I think the most the sort of the first outcome that I got from joining the program was my sophomore summer. I worked at a private equity firm. It's one of the top private equity firms for the infrastructure industry. So that was like a great brand name to have on my resume. And then sort of I was able to leverage that into my junior year internship where I interned at a middle market bank. And then from there, I was able to recruit full time into one of the top industry specific banks to full time. So I think looking back, it's really important to start early. And as soon as I joined the program, I was able to get a really great sophomore, finance experience, leveraging that into an investment banking internship at a solid middle market bank, and then after that, going to one of the top industry specific banks for full time. So it's a really, I guess, looking back, sort of stepping up each year
Yeah.
throughout the years.
And you bring up a good point too, which is like a lot of times people think recruiting is just like, one step process. You go from where you are now to like whatever the bank is you want to end up in. But a lot of times that's actually not how it happens. Is there are a lot of different milestones you have to hit along the way. You might not go straight to the end destination in one shot, and you have to kind of build your way up. And along the way, you're becoming a better and better candidate, and you're getting more and more experience. But the outcomes and the offers that you're getting are getting progressively better as well. Right? And ultimately, obviously, the one that really counts and really matters is the one that you graduate with for full time, right?
Yep.
So um, that's the other thing for people is like once you're in Wall Street National, you know, we help you the entire way, whether it's your sophomore summer, freshman summer, sophomore summer, junior summer, full time, like whatever it is that you need help with, we're not going to leave you hanging, right? And I think like we were talking about this too the other day when you first got the offers. Like, I mean, you were really excited about this full time offer because one, they're like one of the best at what they do specifically in the industry that they focus on, right? Which is always great because that means that you're going to get great deal flow and great learning experience. And then, obviously that is directly correlated because other firms know that, hey, people in this group get really good deal experience. That is directly correlated to exit opportunities and things like that, which I know everybody talks about going to banking. Even not saying you'll necessarily leave banking, right? You might end up staying there forever, but it's always good to have options if you do decide to leave. You want to ideally go to a place that places well into whether it's other buy side jobs or business school or whatever else you may choose to do afterwards, right? So I think that's really great. Like I'm super happy for you. I think you're first of all you're one of the nicest guys that I've worked with. I feel like, but also you've worked extremely hard um, for the last 20 plus months, right? And like I said, it wasn't like an overnight success, but you just kind of, I feel like my impression of you is you just kind of like, you're just very steady and very consistently doing the work behind the scenes, and then you're like slowly making more and more progress until eventually you just built it up to where it is today. And that's always, great for me to see because it's like, I know how hard it is. I mean, I have appreciation for it because I have a front row seat to it, but um, it's also, I think, when you have to work so hard to earn the thing that you want, like it's even more gratifying in a lot of ways. Right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And yeah, I think everyone knows that the investment banking recruiting process is super competitive and it's definitely, not easy. And it's definitely, challenge after challenge after challenge. I remember, my sophomore year, after getting rejected from all the, business clubs at Stern and then, obviously, networking with different bankers, having very limited response rates, and then going through the interview process and super days. Obviously, got a lot of rejections from different firms. I was actually even told by a VP that interviewed me at one of the investment banks, like he told me like I wouldn't even make it into investment banking. And so
Wow.
having having these different hurdles and challenges come at you, you really have to be able to persevere every step of the way. And it was definitely a very long and arduous process, but it's great to have someone like Sam, behind me, always giving me advice and encouragement. And so, yeah, eventually it feels great too, having been able to go into the finish line and having been able to break into the industry. So,
You gotta send that VP an update email and just kind of like rub it in his face a little bit.
yeah, definitely. I ended up getting into a better bank than him, so it worked.
Oh
So
snap!
fun.
All right, we won't name him. We won't tell people who he is, but no, that's great, man. It's extra. It's That's so much satisfaction when you prove the doubters wrong, right? People that told you couldn't do it. It's always great when you actually do end up doing it. It's like, hey, thanks for giving me that extra fuel to my fire, right? So, um, I guess as part of the last thing here before we wrap up, um, is there like one piece of advice that you would want to give to people who are maybe currently going through recruiting or about to go through recruiting? Maybe they're kind of where you were when you first started, like maybe they go to a non-target school, or maybe they try to get into the clubs and they couldn't get in, or um, they're just they tried all the common methods that people are already doing, like the breaking Wall Streets and the Wall Street Oasis, and it's not really clicking for them. Like, what's one thing that you wish someone had told you back when you first started that would have maybe saved you a lot of trouble or made things a lot easier for you?
I think enrolling into Wall Street Mastermind earlier. But I think
That,
the
that,
biggest
felt like, that felt like a setup. So
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that wasn't my intention, but yeah, like, I mean, anything besides that, I mean, yes, guys, you should join Wall Street Mastermind, absolutely. But like, aside from that, like, is there, if you really think back, like, was there, I don't know, one piece of advice that someone gave you that just helped you a lot, or like made a big difference for you, that
Yeah,
you can,
for sure. I think there's two parts of it. One is time is really important, and the other thing is just having the ability to persevere through sort of everything that gets thrown at you. So I think the investment banking recruiting process, it's very formulaic, right? I think the earlier you start um, the earlier you start, the more advantageous it is for you. So if you're someone that, wants to go into investment banking and you're seriously considering it, I would definitely, start early as possible, right? If you're a freshman, just arrived on campus, definitely reach out to different upperclassmen, join all the relevant finance clubs, do your research, network with different people. Obviously, if you're someone that's still sort of on the edge, wondering if banking is for them, I would strongly urge you to at least try it out, because I think investment banking is definitely one of the best career paths out there. And I myself is also struggling between, oh, should I do consulting or should I do banking? But I think the way the recruiting process works is right. Like investment banking recruiting is much more earlier than consulting. So if you wanted to go into both, at least try investment banking first, and then you can go into consulting later. And so I think time is really, really important for everyone. It's obviously a very limited resource. And so you want to be able to maximize your time as possible. And I think for me, joining the program was again something that really was able to, for me to save time, save effort, and just really kick off my recruiting process in a more efficient manner. And then I guess the last point is just being able to persevere through everything. I think I'm a great example of someone who met a lot of failure over the years. Obviously, failed a lot of different interviews, failed a lot of different networking conversations. So definitely, as a student, I understand how difficult it is. But I think it's really great to just look at the long, look at the horizon, look at the long game, 2, 3 years down the line, and understand that, you're not going to get all the interviews, you're not going to be able to win everything, and just, having a positive mindset, and being able to sort of, go through each hurdle effectively is really important. So I think all in all, for me, having a mentor like Sam, being able to guide me through the different challenges was really a rewarding and, great support to have. So yeah, just make sure to maximize your time, and don't be afraid of different failures, and just being able to grind it out is really important.
Got it. Got it. That was good stuff. I asked you for one piece of advice. You gave people like 5, which is awesome. But I think your point about perseverance is spot on, right? I think a lot of people, I don't know, for whatever reason, expect this to be. I think a lot of people are kind of entitled nowadays, to be completely honest, right? Where they expect like this to be easy, or especially students that not only do it on purpose, but like a lot of students that are going for banking, they're kind of like the more type A, very ambitious, successful types. There's a little bit of self-selection there going on, I feel like, but they've been successful their entire lives, right? Like they always got good grades in school. They were always near the top of their class growing up. They got in good colleges, so it's just like, I think a lot of people aren't used to, or at least a lot of people that are going for banking aren't really used to a lot of rejection. But it's just like, actually, if we think of this as like a video game, as you progress through life and you set bigger and bigger goals, each goal becomes harder, and there's fewer and fewer people that can accomplish that goal, right? And so um, you got to get used to rejection. Like I know very few, I mean, we do have students that we've worked with that, went through the entire investment banking recruiting process and didn't get a single rejection. Like, yes, they exist, but I can tell you, after working with 400 plus students at this point, like that is less than 1% of the people out there, right? For the vast majority of the people, just because of how competitive investment banking recruiting is, like you are going to get rejections, right? You're going to apply to a firm and not get selected for an interview, or you're going to get selected for an interview and you're not going to get the offer, like whatever it may be. Um, you just got to take it in stride, and more importantly, learn from every experience, and always ask yourself, how can I get better from this experience, and what did I do this time that kind of prevented me from getting the outcome that I want, and how can I avoid making the same mistake the next time? And if you do that enough times, eventually you know, you don't make any of those mistakes and you're going to go through the process with the bank basically perfectly, which is, or at least almost perfectly, which is honestly what kind of has to happen nowadays, right? Like you have to be able to make it through the first round interview or the higher review and then the super day, which is multiple interviews and behaviorals, technical, so on and so forth. And really like not mess up on anything for the most part if you want to get the job, right? And so you get there eventually, but usually it's not going to happen on the first try, right? So I think that's great advice. But anyway, for those of you who are still listening, I think, you know, if you are currently going through the recruiting process and maybe you haven't been seeing the results that you want, or maybe you are just starting out, but you understand how competitive this process is. You understand how important this is to your career, and you just want to put your best foot forward, and you want to do this in the most efficient way possible. Then I want to invite you to talk to us, right? And you don't even have to talk to our team right away. What you can do is actually reach out to us, and now we're doing this thing called virtual coffee chats, where you can actually speak to an alumni of our program first, or you can speak to like an upperclassman who has already gone through the recruiting process, has successfully broken into one of these top tier banks. And it's just like any other networking conversation that you have. You can just ask them whatever questions you want, talk to them about how they did it, get some advice. And then you can even ask them about Wall Street Mastermind if you want, whatever it is that you want to use the time for. And then after you talk to one of our alumni, if you feel like you still want to talk to our team, then we can set you up for a call with our team. But you know, if you don't want to talk to our team, then you don't have to talk to our team, and that's fine too. You just, you know, get a free networking session. So I think it's a great opportunity, honestly. If nothing else, you guys get to practice your networking skills. And so if that's something that you guys are interested in doing, then you can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street's abbreviated to ST, so it's www.wallstmastermind.com/apply. And you can book one of these virtual coffee chats with an upperclassman, and and then they can help you out. All right. So anyway, guys, you know, I'm going to wrap it up here. But Noah, before we go, I want to thank you again for taking the time to, you know, speak to me and also just share your insight and share your experience with all of our listeners as well. And obviously, super happy for you with the outcome that you were able to get. I know this was a super long journey for you, but I'm glad it all paid off in the end. And I'm glad that you're happy, because if you're happy, then I'm happy. And, you know, looking forward to all the success that you have ahead of you, both, you know, starting next summer when you start working, as well as whatever you end up doing beyond banking. So, yeah, man, just it was an honor and a pleasure to work with you and play a small part in this journey.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much, Sam. Appreciated all the support and help and guidance and mentorship. And so, yeah, thank you so much for, being a part of this long journey with me throughout the recruiting process. And yeah, it was a pleasure speaking with you today as well.
Awesome. All right, guys, that'll be it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. All right, talk to you guys soon. Bye.